Hi there, I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent Training. Welcome to our live Friday broadcast, where we take your questions regarding American English pronunciation, American accent, intonation, and other topics to help you improve your personal and professional communication in American English. If you're new to class, I'll let you know that each week we talk about a topic or several topics. I share free resources and show you where you can find more information. And you can ask your questions at any time by typing them in the chat. So I will periodically stop and read through those questions and make sure that I'm getting to the information that you'd like to know. I encourage you to ask questions because it helps me know what information is best for people like you who are working on improving their accent, who are working on improving their American English, and it gives me ideas for future classes and for videos that I can make. Hi, nice to see you. I just want to mention at the beginning of class today that this is a stressful time for all of us. There's a lot going on with the coronavirus and COVID-19 that's affecting everyone. And I just want to say that I'm heartened by my opportunity to reach out to people across the US, across the world, my clients and my students. It really gives me a lot of joy to be connecting with everyone right now and seeing how caring people are, how they're working on communicating and connecting with others. And I think that's going to really help us in this difficult time. So thank you everyone for being here, and I hope everyone is well and healthy, taking good care of themselves and their families. We're well here. I am in the Seattle area in Washington, and it has had a big impact on me and on this area, so it's on everyone's mind, I know. I did this week upload a few new videos regarding COVID-19 and coronavirus, both how to pronounce them, a little bit about the terminology and what means what, so you can check those out on the channel page. And if you want information about the virus, a great source for that is the CDC or Centers for Disease Control website. That's cdc.gov. So another note, many of us now are working from home. There's been a reduced amount of people going out to the office, and coming along with that, there are some new tasks and new challenges for people for communicating. So you may be finding that you're needing to do more phone calls, you're needing to do more video conferencing, Skype calls, and if that's something that you haven't had a lot of practice and experience with, it's good to be thinking ahead for what kinds of skills you need there. So I'll be making some videos and lessons for that in the coming weeks, and you can certainly ask questions about that as well today. Our topic for today, in addition to looking at some of the requests that have come in over the week and your questions and requests today, we're also going to talk about some of the hidden sounds in English. So for example, one of the sounds I'd like to look at is the J sound in English, which the IPA for that sound looks like a D and a funny Z with the tail. The sound is J, and we associate it with the letter J for words like job and just. We also make this sound sometimes with the letter G for words like general or gentleman. And then there's some places where this sound is hidden in words. So for example, in the word educate, there's no J and there's no G, but we have the J sound, educate. Similarly in procedure, so sometimes the D and the DU will spell this J sound as well. Similarly, schedule and page, that one is a G sound. So we'll look at some of these patterns for the J sound, as well as some other letters that can be confusing or that we can consider hidden sounds if we have time when we've handled everyone's questions and requests. So we have a question, or yes, a question, how to pronounce cheat sheet in fast speech. Now that's a challenging one. So what I would say for that word, as for almost any word when you're working on pronunciation, is that the first thing is to try to go slowly. So if I'm thinking about cheat sheet, I know probably for some people the challenge will be the contrast of the CH and SH sounds and also saying it quickly. Even though the spelling is different of these vowel sounds, they rhyme and it's the same E vowel. So my only difference here is really with the ch sound. I need to push that out versus the SH sound is a continuing sound. So these are the symbols for those sounds. The CH looks like a T plus an SH sound, and that's basically what it is. When I'm saying ch, I'm pushing the air out, and when I'm saying sh, I'm continuing. So I would simply practice cheat sheet, cheat sheet, cheat sheet, and try to be able to say those two closer and closer together until you can say it more as one word. You can also practice other words with the CH sound or the SH sound that might help you be more efficient and effective with both those sounds and putting them together. Okay, so some of the requests we had this week were very good that came in via Facebook, via the community page on YouTube. One of them was about pronouncing words that begin with the letters RE. So we had a little quiz on this on the community page this week. And this was a challenging one for people because when we see those letters, we tend to think of these sounds re or the green T vowel. And in many, many words, the letters RE do not actually say re. So the only time I'm going to say that re sound is if I have a stress on the first syllable. For example, I need to reconsider my options. Reconsider. The main stress there is on the sid of sitter, but because I'm using this as a prefix to redo, to reconsider, to re-watch, etc., there's some stress on that, and I'm using the clear vowel E. The rest of the time, and for most words, the RE is actually going to say a reduced vowel sound, ri. So for example, in words like return, renew, repeal, repeat, it has the reduced and lax I vowel. So this was the one that many people on the community page quiz thought should be more like repeat. And I think if I say the word very slowly, and maybe if I'm talking about the noun, a repeat of something, I might have the tendency to say the E vowel. But in the dictionary and in most speech, if I'm saying a repeat performance, can you please repeat that phrase, repeat after me, it's actually an I sound, repeat, because this syllable is unstressed and this syllable is stressed. So in that unstressed syllable, I have to be short and use that lax vowel. So this is something that I think people, it's kind of counterintuitive. It's not what you would think when you see the spelling of those words. And so I'm looking forward to having time to make a video outlining that in more detail and giving you more examples of the different patterns. So that was one of the requests from earlier this week, and I see there's some have come in on the chat, so I'll answer those now. So we have a question for the word quarantine. That's timely given our situation, quarantine. And so in this word, we have first syllable stress, quarantine. So the quar part is longer. And then we have the QUA, which is also in words like quarter and quarterly. And the QU says qua, KW, quar. And then the AR in this word actually says or, quarterly. So thinking about moving from that rounded W shape, quar, or, and then pulling my tongue back for the or, I'm going to have quar, quarantine, quarantine. This is a reduced vowel, which I think is probably a schwa, like an quarantine. And then I have a clear E vowel at the end, quarantine, quarantine. Great question, and hopefully not something that we have to do, but people are looking at self-quarantining for preventing the spread of the infection. So self-quarantine, I'm going to stress on self, and then quarantine has the same pronunciation. Great question. Okay, so hello everybody who's joined us since we started. Question about why we pronounce T in letter as D. So that kind of T sound, we call it a flap T, and there's many contexts in which the American T in the middle of words is more of a flap T or a D sound. So when it's between two vowel sounds, very often it will be that flap T. Also in some other contexts, for example, when I say it is, and I link those two words, this T also becomes more of a D. Sounds like it is, or get it will sound more like get it. And that's, I think, simply the reason that it happens is that my voice just stays on when it's going from vowel sound to vowel sound. And the T sound, letter, would be unvoiced if I used just a regular T. And so my voice comes on and I just lightly glide through that. So I'm not doing a strong, hard D, letter, it is. I'm just moving up into that T position with my tongue, leaving my voice on and gliding. I think it probably happens in American English because it helps with fluency and connectedness of speech, and it's simply a pronunciation pattern that we have in our accent that's not in other accents. So British English, they would say British, and we would say British with the flap. Great question. I do have many, many videos about when to pronounce flap T, giving you other examples of words that it's in, and helping you begin to bring that into your speech. So check those out on speechmodification.com on the free practice lessons, and also here on the YouTube channel. You can find those videos by searching in the search tools on my channel page for American T or T in the middle of words. There's many, many videos for that. Thank you for the question. So we have a request, which dictionary to take to learn vocabulary and American pronunciation. So my favorite dictionary for pronunciation in general is actually a British dictionary. It's called the Oxford Learner's Dictionary, and it has both British and American pronunciation. And the reason that I like this one is that because it has both, you can see if perhaps you know a word. Let's look at that word. Let's look at the word, for example, advertisement. It's going to have a different pronunciation in British English than American English. So in British English, we see here advertisement. Oh, I shouldn't talk over her, sorry.
Advertisement.
So she's saying advertisement. American English.
Advertisement.
American English, advertisement or advertisement. I can use that then to help me know, okay, maybe I learned the British pronunciation here rather than the American pronunciation. It also has some nice resources for English learning. So they've recently added some word lists where you can look up words to use for certain things. So for example, words for business, words for different categories, the most important words to know for academic learning. So I like those features as well. For increasing your vocabulary, the best thing is to find natural sources of language. So listening to television, reading books, and looking up the words that you don't know. Those are all great, and you can use the dictionary in conjunction with that. Let's see, so we had a follow-up on the word cheat sheet. I thought the T from cheat would be linked to the SH in sheet, and it would sound like cheat sheet in fast speech. Cheat sheet. Cheat sheet. Yeah, so it does kind of, that T does kind of go in with that S, and I can hear how it sound like it might sound that way. I think because we don't have a word cheat. If I were saying cheat, I would actually have to break a little bit. When I say cheat sheet, I am gliding a little bit more, and so my SH sound is longer. So great, nice to see everybody. we have another question from Mohammed about how to pronounce congratulations. Congratulations. And unfortunately. Okay, good. So both of these are long words. As you can see, it's taking me a while to write them. Unfortunately and congratulations. So with a longer word, I like to look at which syllable has the stress and to build from there. And by which syllable has the stress, I mean there's part of the word that I'm going to be holding longer and part of the word that's going to be going faster. So for congratulations, my stress is on the A of lations. And so I'm going to go quickly, congratulations, on the other syllables. Things to watch out for, you may want to make sure that you can do your American R in the grat. Congratulations. And this TU in American English actually sounds more like a ch sound. So it's going to look like chew, just like the word chew, shun, congratulation or congratulations if it's plural, then that'll be a Z sound there at the end. And because this is unstressed, I don't do anything like an O or a rounded sound. It's the unstressed schwa, sounds like congratulations. For unfortunately, second syllable stress, so short, long, short, short, unfortunately, 3 syllables there. And again, there's my TU, another unfortunate. Actually, that one's less of a chew, unfortunately. So it's more of an I. So this one is more like chin, chew and chin. That's kind of funny coincidence. Okay, so it's going to sound like unfor with a long for, unfortunate, like it, and then I have the tense E at the end, unfortunately. You see how I rewrite the words with an alternate spelling? That's usually my way of trying to represent the spelling in a way that matches the pronunciation. In the dictionary, you'll see symbols like this one. That's the sound. It can be useful, of course, to learn certain symbols to understand what they mean. You'll see that the CH, as I showed for cheat sheet, looks like that in the dictionary. So if you identify which patterns you tend to struggle with, which consonant sounds and vowel sounds, it's good to learn those symbols so you can look them up in the dictionary. But I also really like rewriting the word in a way that makes more sense to my brain and helps me remember that pronunciation, so that when I look at this word, maybe I had it wrong, maybe I had some errors, and when I see that word, my old way of pronouncing might come out of my mouth. When I see this, I've never seen this word before. This is totally new, and so I can go more slowly and think unfortunately. That looks confusing that way, and I can start to build that word that way. So again, like I was demonstrating for the other words, breaking the word apart, making each sound separately, and then speeding up and pulling it back together so that eventually you can say unfortunately with the correct sounds and the correct syllable stress. Great questions. Thank you for those words. All right, I'm a little behind on your questions. Let me see what else we have. People from all over today. So India, Iraq, welcome. It's great to see everybody. We have a comment. I often hear native speakers say because with the green T vowel in B, or electric, is it correct to use the E there? So technically, both in between and in electric, these vowels are the reduced vowel I, but the same thing that affects non-native speakers can affect native speakers. When I see the letter E, I think of the E, green T vowel sound. In connected speech, when someone's talking, they're very, very unlikely to say it's between the electric plug and the electric toaster with a really clear stressed E vowel. So the most important thing is to be short on those and long on the stressed syllable. If I say between or between, doesn't really matter that much. The most important thing is that that's short. If I say electric or electric, again, not as important as the stress pattern. But if you're trying to have the most American sound and the native sound and the fluency, I would go for practicing those reduced sounds. I do often hear on certain words, Americans will be using those tense vowels in some of those words, and it often depends on the context. So yes, you're correct. And you do hear that from native speakers as well. Great question. So Junior wants to know about boarded up. Okay, so the verb boarded up. He boarded up the house. So boarded up. It's just this board is the same as this board. And the ed in this word is going to say id, boarded. This spelling doesn't really help though. So I would say thinking about it as building from the or first. That's probably the most difficult part. Going slow enough to get that back tight tongue. Or. Then when you can say that, add the B. Bore. Then add your D. Board. And then when you can say that, boarded. And lastly, boarded up. It's all going to kind of run together as one phrase. It's probably that combination of the or and the D that is challenging. So you can look for other places where there is that combination and practice those. Okay, we had a question about develop and developing. I do hear errors on this one quite a bit. And I have a video about pronouncing develop, developer, and developing. Again, stress is on the middle syllable vel that has the clear vowel eh. And watching out for the V sound that you have teeth and lip connecting and the sound continues, v, vel. And then the L is really kind of on the O, on the last syllable, develop. So we have the I vowel here and the I vowel at the beginning. So short, long, short, develop. So that O, it's probably actually a schwa, develop. So it's going to have the sound. So if I had to rewrite it, I'd write it as develop. And then for developing, same thing, just adding my ing, making sure that I have a back lift in my tongue for developing, that the back of my tongue is lifting. And I don't want any K or G sound there, not developing or developing, but my tongue has to stay up and my voice turns off, developing. So depending on which sounds you're struggling with there, there are a lot of resources on my channel page and my website to help you with those individual sounds, as well as a particular video just about that word that you can use to help you practice. Wendell wants to know, is non-final intonation, final word thought group intonation, mandatory in all contexts? Or is it only used in conversational contexts? Can we omit it when reading an academic text, for example? So when we're reading something out loud, we still use falling off to show the end of a phrase or thought group. And we have the commas and the periods to give us some clues. Intonation is a little more challenging when reading out loud because the sentences, especially in the academic text, tend to be much longer and denser than we use conversationally. So you're not going to have you're going to have more arcs within your longer text. But that intonation rule applies for conversational speech, for presenting, for reading. Mandatory is kind of a tough word. There, of course, is variability. But if I don't have those patterns and that falling off when I'm reading aloud, if I'm expecting someone to be understanding and following, they're really going to have a hard time knowing which groups of words go together if I don't have that pattern of of falling off in my intonation towards the ends of thought groups. So yes, you do want to try to apply that in those contexts as well. Question, especially pronunciation. So the question is whether the word especially has an I, especially, or especially. And I think those are probably both acceptable because, again, the second syllable is what's stressed, and these are going to be a reduced vowel. But let me show you how I check when I want to verify what I think and do versus what I see. So we'll go back to the Oxford Learner's Dictionary, and let's type in your word, especially, and we'll see what they have to say. Especially. And so what they're showing is the I, especially, and they often, many words that have the letter E in an unstressed syllable, like between or return that we were talking about earlier, will have that I vowel. I think that, again, when people see the letter E, sometimes that shapes their perception of what they're saying, and it might sound to your ear more like especially. Again, it's very hard to differentiate if I say especially or especially. To me, that's a very, very small distinction between the I and the eh. So I think I personally might be a little more on the open side, like especially, rather than very closed, like especially. But in any case, I don't want to be too clear on that vowel. I don't really want to hold it. I don't want especially or especially. I want it to be very light and fast. So that's my advice on that one. Great. I have a question about what happened to my finger. I cut it while I was cutting onions the other night making dinner, so I wasn't being careful enough, and so I cut myself. But it's fine. It's healing. I just have it covered up because I want to make sure that I keep it nice and clean. Thank you for asking. Okay. Can I tell the difference between, next question, Corona, Crohn, and the virus, the coronavirus? Yes, so Corona and Crohn have a KR blend, Corona, Corona. And so the main difference here when I'm talking about coronavirus is that I don't want to leave this syllable out. I don't really want to call it coronavirus because it sounds different. I need a syllable there, although your observation is good because the first syllable is short and reduced. So I am using the schwa sound, the k sound, and I do want to be fast on it, but not so fast that it sounds the same as corona. I don't want coronavirus. I want to make sure I have a distinct syllable there, coronavirus. Yes, that's a timely question as well. And I did mention at the beginning of class that I have uploaded a couple of videos about pronunciation for coronavirus and COVID-19. So I'll show you where those are on my channel page. If you go to Speech Modification Seattle, there's my community page. And if we go to the channel page, you'll see in the recent uploads, the most recent uploads, I guess you have to scroll down a little ways. Here's a video about pronouncing COVID-19. Here's one about pronouncing virus and COVID-19. And then this one is about the terminology and which one is which. So briefly, coronavirus describes many types. There's many types of coronaviruses. It's a category of virus. And the current novel coronavirus, the new one that has come up in 2019, is actually called SARS-CoV-2, stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2. That's what they named the virus strain when they realized it was different than other ones, abbreviated to SARS-CoV-2. And that's the name of the virus. The name of the disease that it causes, or the illness that it causes, is COVID-19. And that's called that because COVID-19 is short for coronavirus disease 2019. So that's all explained in that video. And I talked just a little bit more about coronaviruses in general, what some other ones have been in the past. There are 7 types that can affect humans, 4 of which are very common and cause very mild respiratory illnesses, and 3 of which are more severe, which is the MERS virus, the original SARS virus, and then the current coronavirus. Sorry if that was more than you wanted to know. I did also say at the beginning of class that you can get a lot of really good, reliable information on the cdc.gov website. That's the Centers for Disease Control. And I recommend, many of us are finding there's all kinds of information out there, and going right to a source that's verified, where the information is current and correct, is the best way to find information about those questions. The best way to find information about pronunciation questions related to that is to talk to me. So I apologize. I see that the time is going past 12:30 and I have to wrap it up for today. There are quite a few questions I didn't get to, so I'm going to have to come back to you. I'll follow up after class and put some comments, some responses in the comments, so your questions get answered as well. But there were a lot of great questions today. Thank you so much for being a part of class. And as I said in the beginning, it's been wonderful to be able to reach out to people across the United States, across the country, across the world, and connect with everyone at this difficult time. So thank you for coming to class, and watch for some upcoming lessons and videos about how to make connections and to move your work and your communication to teleconferencing, phone, and virtual communication, as many people are staying home and working from home in the coming days. So thanks, everyone. Again, I apologize for not having time for everyone's questions, but I do need to wrap it up for today. We will be back next week, so come back again, ask your questions, and we'll be sure to address them as well. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound American, you can do it. speechmodification.com.